Yu-Gi-Oh is one of the most difficult trading card games to get into. With over 10,000 different cards and so many different products to choose from, where do you even begin? Using a budget of just £30 a week, I set out to mould my own deck and climb the competitive ladder all the way to the European Championships. The challenge? All my cards have to be obtained through sealed official products. I'm not allowed to trade, I'm not allowed to buy cards individually, and instead have to rely on the cold, hard luck of the draw. You're watching Yu-Gi-Oh from scratch. Yo, welcome back to the show. It's been, 2 weeks since episode 5 now. YCS London kinda got in the way of things, but hey, we're back on track now. Nothing to worry about. So picking up where we left off, episode 5 was a massive turning point in the series where we managed to grab LP, Borreload Savage, and Phantasme and actually start winning games. Now that we have access to a base win condition, I think it's probably a good idea to boost our deck in other aspects as well. I'm talking side deck, extra deck, just better generic disruption in general, and the best way to do that, if you remember from episode 1, is with Dual Devastator. That's right, it just manages to fit in our budget at £30 per box, so that's all we'll be opening this week, but I think it's definitely worth it. So let's go and crack it open. Beautiful. Have you guys heard about the issue they've had with Dual Devastator where some of the product just doesn't have any cards in it? I find that hilarious, but if it had happened to me like right now, I think that would just be so gutting. Just move that over there. So Dual Devastator, if you're unaware, is a relatively new product from Konami which contains 4 random field centers of a total of 12 and a set card list of 56. So taking a look at these field centers now, they actually look pretty nice. We got Ghost Sister, Joey and Red Eyes, Mai and Amazoness Swordswoman, and Yugi with Dark Magician. I'm not gonna lie, I have to think my favorite out of these 4 is the Null Nuns. But even then, they all look pretty cool, so probably switch them up every now and again. Now moving on to the actual meat of the product, you get 1 of each Ghost Sister, which is 6 hand traps in total, plus 30 side deck cards and 20 extra deck cards. There's been a lot of mixed reviews on this set, and I can kind of see it from both points of view. Like, a lot of people that are already in the game were kind of hoping that it would make a lot of really expensive cards more accessible, like Phantasme, and they were quite disappointed with some of the questionable choices in the set. On the other hand though, for like new and returning players that don't already have all these cards, it's perfect, especially for a series like this, because it basically builds you a meta-relevant side deck just out of nowhere, and there's just a lot of good cards that are good to have. Some of these new artworks are just beautiful as well. Like, look at that Ghost Bell, complete in our playset, and it just looks so good. Next up here, we have Spoopy Doggo. I feel like the reprint for this was a bit early after it got initially released, because Dark Neostorm wasn't that long ago. Not that it was that expensive to begin with, and I guess it fits with the theme of the product, so I really shouldn't be complaining. Red Blossoms of Underroot is very underwhelming compared to the original translation, which was like Blood Blossom of the Afterlife, which just sounds so badass. Also, if I sound a little bit weird right now, it's because I am a little bit sick. I've got like half of a cold, if that makes any sense. But yeah, anyway, back to the cards. So when it comes to the side deck, I think I'm just going to be swapping things in and out with every episode until I can actually decide on a list. For the extra deck though, there is quite a few cards in here that we will be using, like Scarlight for example. That's a really good option for time, which allows us to take magic cylinders out of the side deck, and it's also just a good card in general for blowing up boards. Saryuja is also another big one that will become more important down the line as we advance our strategies, because as it is right now, Rocket Tracer and Rocket Synchron are both integral to our combo plays, and they both limit us to dark monsters from the extra deck, which stops us from summoning, Saryuja, Apollousa, Hieratic Seal. So based on that, I feel like the next big play we're going to need to get our hands on is the Ib Synchro package, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Oh hey, we got another Decode Talker, so we have both arts now. Our collection's actually getting really bolstered by this opening. Bomber Dragon's also a really nice option because we can trigger its effect with Tracer on the opponent's turn, but also just the Flame Wingman-esque type burn damage is really good. And now we're coming into the side deck cards with even more hand traps. Obviously, ideally we would have 3 of everything, but that requires us opening 3 Dual Devastator, and that's just not the most efficient way to boost our deck right now because we're still looking for so many power cards. It would also just be pretty terrible content because you know exactly what's coming in each episode. Majesties and Vanity's Fiends are actually really quite interesting because we can easily get them out. We don't need our normal summon unless we're going for full combo plays, but if we can get them out, it's pretty much a win condition in itself. It's also really quite safe because it kind of plays around Super Poly and Nibiru as well, so that could be an option right now. Speak of the devil, screw this card, man. Actually, on the topic of Super Poly, quite a few of you suggested that I use Silver Rocket to get rid of my opponent's Starving Venom, and in testing, that does actually seem to do the job pretty well if I do go first. Even if it does cost us some board presence, it's definitely worth it. But anyway, it looks like we're coming to the end of our opening today with all these trap cards. There's quite a few generic good going first options that can go in the side deck here, like Solemn Strike and Lost Wind. So opening this has definitely been worth it because we actually have good going first options now, and we can stop our opponent from doing things. It's still not quite enough to build our deck around going first though, so we will still be blind in second, and hey, we even got a rarity bump to one of our side deck red reboots, so that's pretty cool. The whole purpose of this though was to make our deck overall just better as a whole, and I think it's done exactly that, so let's go put it to the test and take it to locals. So round 1 this week, we lost the dice roll to Trickstars. My question to you guys is, do you do anything interesting when it comes to the die roll? Because I like to play blackjack.
20 pots. 13. 26.
So he went first and literally just set 5 pass. So we're staring down a full-on back row. My normal summon gets crackdowned and we have to pass there because my hand can't really do much else. I've got Ghost Ogre, Ghost Bell, Dragon's Mirror, World Legacy Guard Dragon. Yeah. So he just passes, and on my turn I normal summon Silver Rocket to beat over Gateway Dragon, and then I attempt to revive the Gateway Dragon with World Legacy Guard Dragon, to which he called by the graves the Silver Rocket. So I chain Bell, to which he chains Solemn Strike. Doesn't look like we're gonna get to play Yu-Gi-Oh today, boys. In my end phase, he flips a Scapegoat, so it looks like he's gonna start going in for the kill. Using the tokens, he summons Linkuriboh and then Security Dragon, which he uses to bounce my Silver Rocket back to hand, but at this point I activate Ghost Ogre because I have to stop him from getting to his Link Force. So he then goes into a Phoenix and pops my Guard Dragon spell. I can see that he's very nearly out of resources, so I drop Silver Rocket again and then just crash into the Phoenix so that I get the summon during the end phase and pass back to him. He sets one and sends it back over to us, and at this point we can just combo off until he eventually picks up his cards. Game 2 he goes first again and ends on 3 back row plus Eater of Millions. In the standby he flips a Reincarnation, basically giving us a full mulligan. So starting off with a quick launch for Tracer, I then normal summon Magna Rocket and link into Delingerous Dragon. I then go on to revive Tracer with World Legacy Guard Dragon, to which he chains Called by the Grave, to which I chain Ghost Bell again. This allows me to combo off with LP and get to a board of Borreload plus Borreload Savage. And then on declaration of battle phase, he activates a Nibiru at the end of main phase to bait out a Borreload Savage negate. He could have just activated it on the summon of Borreload Savage, which would have just wiped my board, so I guess it's kind of a misplay from him. But it does, however, stop me from being able to negate the Eater of Millions in the battle phase, so I just pass my turn. And in my end phase, Scapegoat gets flipped again. So he baits out my final Savage negate with Security Dragon, and then goes into a Phoenix to pop my back row. Then he takes control of the game from here because he goes on a Unicorn to spin back my Borreload Savage and then gets rid of Borreload with his Eater of Millions, and that's game. Game 3 I opt to go first and I open a pretty decent hand. I can get some sort of combos going, but round 2 we lose the die roll to Dinos and we're made to go first, but we open a pretty sweet hand. Game 2, we go second this time. He ends on nothing but Oviraptor, adding Pill to hand, so I think it's pretty clear he has Nibiru. So using just 4 summons, I end on a Booster Dragon plus Borreload Furious. After clearing his board and passing it back, he normal summons Veiler for Linkuriboh, and then Pills for Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. I'm not too worried just yet because I can chain Furious to the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno effect to pop him, which I do. But he has Miscellaneousaurus. So my board gets cleared and I take a bunch of damage, and then when I try to build a board, as soon as I get 2 monsters on the field, he activates the effect of Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Now here is where I get quite flustered and misplay very heavily. So I activate Dragon Shrine to send Auto Rocket Dragon and revive it with World Legacy Guard Dragon. and then I banish Furious from grave to revive Booster Dragon and make Quad Boral using those two materials. Using the effect of Quad Boral to destroy Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, I play into the final card in his hand, which is another Miscellaneousaurus, and I lose the game. Watching this back now is just so hard because I don't understand what was so difficult about this play. If I had sent Tracer with Dragon Shrine instead of Auto Rocket, I could have popped the Guard Dragon spell to summon a level 4, synchro into Borreload Savage and attach Booster Dragon, negate the Linkuriboh and attack over the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. But it sucks to suck, I guess. Round 3, we're up against Metaphys, we win the die roll and we go second. Ending his turn on 2 back row plus the field spell and one of the beefy Metaphys monsters, he shotguns Sanctum in my standby phase. Locked out of the extra deck for a turn, it's a good thing I opened Red MD. Never mind. Game 2, I decide to go first, and sick of all the Super Polys and Nibirus, I decide to play around all of them, by ending on a singular Cyberse Quantum Dragon. He summons a Ragnarok, which I destroy with Ghost Ogre, and then sets 3 back row and passes back to me. At this point, it's just so tempting to summon out a bunch of monsters and OTK him, but I know for a fact, as soon as I drop another Dart monster, I'm getting Super Polyed. So I just attack for 2-5 and pass it back to him. And that is literally game 2 until he dies. Turns out it was the right call because he did actually have Super Poly set, so I'm proud of myself there. Game 3, we're going second and he ends on 4 back row. Going into my standby, I drop a Twinnies and he chains Trap Trick to set a Metaphys card and banish a Metaphys card, which gets him a search for a Metaphys monster. Just typical Metaphys shenanigans really. So I set 2 back row, normal summon White Rose Dragon and punch him for 1200 and pass on that. During my end phase, he activates Metaphys Ascension, so he discards a card, draws a card, and then banishes a Metaphys card, so then on his standby phase he gets a search. Then on his turn, after activating the continuous trap in the field spell, I flip Guard Dragon Cataclysm, so I tribute the White Rose Dragon and pop both of those cards. It's actually a real shame we only have 1 Guard Dragon Cataclysm, because that card is actually really good. Eventually he normal summons a Ragnarok, which we have to Ghost Ogre, because if it deals battle damage, it can special summon a Metaphys from deck, and they just snowball from there. But that ends his turn, so then on my turn during the standby phase he gets a search and he special summons the level 1 decoy dragon thing, which I do steal with Crackdown as a line of defense because I didn't draw into anything worth using right now. Back to him and he resolves like an extravagance and a bunch of other effects, so he's gaining loads of resources. It really looks like I should be out of the game at this point, but on my turn I invest my last 2 cards into the MVP Cyberse Quantum Dragon, and he doesn't have an answer to it, so that's another 2-5 on board for me. It's actually unreal how good this card has been for the series so far. On his turn he gets another Ragnarok down, but honestly it doesn't matter because it can't get over Cyberse Quantum Dragon. And then eventually he gets a Decoy Dragon out, and so if I attack the Decoy Dragon he can special a Metaphys, which wipes my board. So instead I go for Scarlight and finish him off. So updated stats, nothing too crazy going on, we're just gonna have to persevere and see how we do over time. And with all that being said and done, we can now move on to the prize packs and the final words. Post-nut clarity, if you will. You damn right we're gonna be using that ulti Hayate as a cherries target. But yeah, after being haunted by Super Poly for a couple of episodes, Nibiru has also stepped into the ring now and we're taking a pummeling from both. I'm also starting to think that we may be running slightly too many hand traps. While we have so little starter cards, we want our hands to synergize as much as possible, and the hand traps seem to be getting in the way of that sometimes. But then again, it could be way too early to make an accurate judgment, so here's the deal. We're going to go to a regional next episode. I know for a fact that everyone and their nan's dog is going to be running 3 Super Poly and 3 Nibiru, so we're pretty much doomed. But the point is, we should get a much better idea of where our deck currently stands and what its key issues are. So stay tuned for that. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh haven't done a regional in a long time, so it's going to be fun. As always, thanks for all the support. It's super appreciated, and I'll see you next week.